Yeah, I'm doing very good. And I love the way you get in bang on 7. I'm never quite sure if you're going to turn up. And if people can detect croakiness in my voice, it's because I was watching the soccer this afternoon. I'm a Liverpool supporter, so I tend to shout at the screen a bit. How's your week been, Rich?
Yeah, all good, all good. I do quite often consider coming in early, but I think I've set a trend, so I'm going to stick to that and arrive smack on the money.
Right, okay.
I'm
Well, maybe we're
poised. I'm poised on the other end of the screen, waiting for you to go live.
well, yeah, okay. So yeah, we've got some questions already lined up. So I thought we'd do that, which I think would be a good idea. What do you reckon?
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think we're live tonight on the Keto Low Carb Facebook group also, I believe.
We are, sir. We are definitely doing that. So hi, Facebookers.
Fantastic.
Welcome along. I think this is going to be something we'll do a bit more frequently on Facebook. So I think we're on Twitter, or X as it's now called, obviously on YouTube, in the Facebook group, and also 8 o'clock we're going off this platform and onto one that rhymes with Crumble. So yeah, let's have a look at Matthew's question, shall we? Or unless you want to talk to your Facebook friends.
No, let's go for it. I'm hoping that a lot of the group are on board and listening, because we've got some exciting news to release today. An invitation, if you like, to the current Facebook listeners. Any of the avid listeners and followers of us every week will already be aware that we have started a new venture, if you like. But we'll cover that a little bit later on. Bit of a cliffhanger. But yeah, welcome on board, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, and I've got some electrolytes here, which I got from Keto Pro. Right, here we go. So Matthew, hi, Matthew. He says, "Hello, health seekers." Richard's ultimate podcast intro. Oh, you say that?
Right. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
That's good. The sunset is stunning in Norwich this evening. What has there been like today in the East Midlands and in South Wales? I think he's missed the word weather there. What has the weather been like today in East Midlands and in South Wales? What's it like been in South Wales?
Hey, Matthew, great to see you. Thanks for the comments on the recent podcast as well. Well appreciated. Always appreciate your support. Weather's been absolutely stunning today. Absolutely incredible. I've been out for an hour or two with my little girl and the wife up the local park. So yeah, soaking in some vitamin D. That's another topic. I think we could probably do a whole other podcast on vitamin D. It's not quite what you think it is, by the way. But yeah, the weather this end has been absolutely incredible. What's it been like with you, Steve?
Yeah, been really good. We went to sort of a charity thing that's raising money for Nepal, a craft fair sort of thing, and that was good. Walked the dog, excellent. Walked by a river. So yeah, it's been warm. I didn't have a jacket on. I had a short sleeve shirt. By the way, I don't always wear this t-shirt. This is just for when I'm doing this. Born 1964, so people don't have to say how old are you and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So what you're talking about, vitamin D there? What do you mean? It's another story.
It's not exactly what we believe it is within the body, but to cover that topic in more detail, I think I'd rather save that for next week, collate some information that I can show you guys on the screen, because it's an interesting topic. But look, vitamin D is really important, but we can get much of it from, in fact, most of it comes from our food, from the meat that we eat. We can't get vitamin D from plants. We get vitamin D from the proteins that we eat. We can synthesize it from the sun, from UVA. But a lot of the benefits, the long and the short is, and we'll cover this in more detail, the long and the short is, many of the benefits attributed with vitamin D actually come from the UVA rays, which increase something called nitric oxide within the body. And it's nitric oxide which lead on to many of the health benefits that are attributed to vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is important, but it's the other benefits, and particularly this increase in nitric oxide, which being ketogenic also increases.
Yeah.
Or carnivore.
And I think the nitric oxide bit is underestimated. And also this is a big part of why morning sunlight is so good, because it comes in at a different angle
That's right.
through the atmosphere. So yeah, right. Because a
And
lot of
evening
people,
light.
yeah, well, yes,
And
because of the angle it's
that's
coming in rather than directly through the atmosphere.
spot
And I
on.
think that's I was just adding that for people that say, oh, it's a nice podcast, Stephen hosting and Richard doing all the science. I know the science. I just step back. Talking of which, it was interesting. I was so annoyed about that Dr. Robert Cywis video about the bloods and the justification for carbs. I think I mentioned it last week. I was going to do a video about it, and then I noticed that Bart Kay did a brilliant takedown of that particular video. But if anyone has seen it, Bart's done a really good response. If you go to Dr. Robert Cywis's video itself, you'll see my comments there. And I think Judy Cho mentioned what she thought on Bart's video. So maybe that's something we'll have a look at some point from the qualified phlebotomist here when we talk about bloods. And doing bloods for carnivores as well as low carb and keto people, I feel like I do have some valid things to say. But anyway, so Matthew corrected himself, and he did write the weather, but in a separate comment. So there you go. It was the weather we were talking about. So Matthew's jumped in. He's done what I recommend people to do if they want to get in early with the comments. You get your question looked at. Of course, you can do a super chat as well if you want to bump yourself up the queue. And also, just to give you some housekeeping, yes, we're 7 minutes into this. And if you've put a comment in, we won't answer it straight away because we just go through the comments, and we try to give a really good answer rather than just go, yes, no, don't know, that sort of thing. So if you comment, we'll get to it. I promise you, we will get to it. Right. Matthew has asked his subsidiary question. What are your opinions on eating in line with our circadian rhythms?
Yeah, I think the body is designed to work with the sun. So I think working with circadian rhythm is important. But that said, something we covered last week in regards to eating at specific times, I do something which is probably highly controversial. I eat just before bed. And the reason that I do this is I've done it through, it's become a habit through not being able to sleep due to not eating. So I've tried to follow the general sort of guidelines in regards to eating, earlier in the day so you can sleep. But I don't sleep unless I eat just before I go to bed or thereabouts. And it makes perfect sense because when we look at animals in the wild, the cheetah, for example, the lion, what do they do once they have caught and eaten their prey? Well, they lay down and have a nap. And that's exactly what I do. I eat my food and I go to bed. And the key to this as well is that the body heals and repairs when we are sleeping. So it makes sense. The best time to consume that protein that's going to heal and repair the body is just before we go to bed. Collagen, I also put in. I do supplement with collagen. I don't think you need to if you crush the bones, eat the bone marrow, if you eat cartilage and the stringy bits off your meat. Very few of us do, but those pieces are incredibly high in collagen. So if I don't eat directly before I go to bed, then I will take collagen, but I try not to take them together. And by that, I mean eating a meal and taking collagen because the aminos will compete for absorption. Specific types of collagen will compete for each other for absorption through specific pathways. So try to keep that separate if you are supplementing with collagen. But yeah, that's my round the houses answer to that question. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I think trying to do everything in line with circadian rhythms would be wonderful. So I'm breaking all the rules here because I'm looking at a screen and it's 7:10. It's dark outside. I've got, I haven't got fluorescent lights on. So I do try my best to avoid those sort of fluorescent lights and things like that and devices. But eating around the circadian rhythms, I think, is a good idea. More to the point, try to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, actually, rather than think it's lunchtime, it's breakfast time, it's dinner time, lunchtime. I think it's got to be beneficial. And also, I do believe that the body likes a sort of regular time to go to bed, a regular time to get up, a regular time to eat. So if you think about, the regular time of getting up, you get a good pulse then of cortisol, and then you will get serotonin and melatonin in the evenings at about the right time. Your body likes that sort of regular habit. But so Emma there has said she's found eating OMAD with my meal around 8 p.m. has worked well for her, which is good. And we've got a few people just saying hello. So Herbert, hello to you. Vitalis, or Ven, he's put there. So maybe that's what I should call him. Hello. Right, Sash Mode. So the names come up, don't they? The same names, which is good. Hiya, guys. What do you both think about a 23-hour fast, OMAD, 5 times a week, Monday to Friday, and then Saturday to Sunday doing 16-8, 2MAD? Any negative benefits long-term? Or I think that means any negative effects long-term. Yeah. Many thanks. Or any positive benefits. So, yeah, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that is a fantastic blueprint. I mean, again, coming back to a point you just made, I eat intuitively. I eat when I'm hungry. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. Some days I don't eat at all because I'm not hungry. I'm always conscious that I need protein to repair because of the training that I do. But the protein will stay in the body. But we don't absorb the protein the second that we consume it, unless it's, in powder form. So we'll always have bioavailable protein within the body. But I think listening to the body is highly important. So for me, some days I won't eat at all. Other times I will eat once a day. Other times I'll eat 6 times a day. So look, there's nothing wrong with eating once a day. So technically you're doing a 23-hour fast, as you rightly say, which is fantastic. The benefits of fasting are absolutely incredible. It puts the body into a state of autophagy and mitophagy, cellular repair and regeneration. The body will heal or take the old, sick, dying cells and create new, younger, stronger, fitter, faster ones. And it's only through fasting that we can do this without supplementation. That's a topic for another day. So fasting is incredible. We need both. We need to be in a state of mTOR and a state of AMPK. So one is the growth signal, mTOR, and the other is when we are not eating food and when the body is self-eating, if you like. So that's a fantastic protocol. I don't think there's any downsides unless your body tells you. So I think it's incredibly important to be attuned to your body. If you start to feel fatigued, then maybe you need to eat more. When people begin a keto carnivore journey, one of the biggest mistakes they'll make is not eating enough. And again, there is an opposite end to that spectrum as well, where people will eat too much because we can eat all of this fat and all this meat, and then people end up eating too much. So you can actually gain weight living a keto carnivore lifestyle also. But through lack of nutrients, and I won't use the term calories, I think we've covered that plenty of times in the past. But for any new listeners, it's not the calories. Calories don't really mean an awful lot. And we can go into that a little bit more detail a little bit later on if you like. But if we are not consuming enough nutrients, the body doesn't heal and repair, and it can lead to people losing hair, for example. So people will complain about hair loss, fatigue, and all this sort of stuff. So listen to your own body. If you perform incredibly well and you are experiencing increase in mental clarity, then 1 a day is fine. 2 MAD over the weekend, that's fine as well. Just listen to your body. You don't need to set specifics. And again, as Steve said earlier, you don't need specific meal times either. In fact, I usually recommend that people swap up meal times because this will trick ghrelin. So ghrelin is a hormone that's released about 10 to 15 minutes prior to your usual meal time, and it will make you hungry. It tells you that you're hungry and ready to eat. But if you bring the meal forward 1 day and put it back the next and keep on swapping the time and tricking your body, then the body doesn't know when your meal is coming. And anyone that's done extended fasting will notice this, because when it comes to that point, so for example, with Sash Mode, if it comes to that 23-hour period, you probably begin to feel hungry around that time. An hour or two after powering through, if you were to do an extended fast, that hunger goes away. And then the next day, the second day, is usually easier than the first because you've already told ghrelin that it's not required. And this is why some people who do 72-hour fasts find it easier on day 3 than they do on day 1. So there is no set rule, but I don't think there's anything negative to what you were doing as long as your body is thanking you for it. So listen to your body.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, so Rich there is talking about biohacking. So for people that are new, you might not need to get into the nuance straight away. OMAD, 1 meal a day. We talk about this at great length on our Mighty Networks Fat Club. And there's lots of graphics and lots of information about that. So I'll put a link in the description to that if you're interested. And I would agree with pretty much everything you just said then. But if you're building muscle, it's so specific. Some people, if you're trying to build muscle, they can't eat enough when it's 1 meal a day. So one of the workarounds there is to eat and then within an hour or 2 hours eat again, which sort of qualifies you for 1 meal a day. So there's lots of things you can do.
Yeah. So 3 hours would be the mTOR reset. So if, we can activate the mTOR reset every 3 hours. So we could train, which would technically break a fast, even though we're not eating because of that activation of mTOR. But you are only eating 1 meal a day. So you could eat that food 3 hours after training because that's 2 mTOR reactions. But you are 100% accurate in what you're saying, isn't it, Steve? It depends on what your goal is. When I was bodybuilding, I was trying actively to activate mTOR 3 to 4 times throughout the day. So I was eating considerably more than once a day. But I do think it's very important to throw a 24-hour fasting occasionally, a 48, and even a 72 once or twice a year. But you need to build up to this. I don't think anybody should jump into an extended fast, and you also need to understand when you do an extended fast how to break that fast, because the last thing you want to do is break it with a meal that contains carbohydrate. We need to break that fast with protein and fat, something that's not going to elicit an insulin response. So what I find with a lot of clients that I work with is that they would do a super long fast, and brilliant, kudos to them. And then, right, I've done my fast. Let's have a treat. Let's have a Domino's pizza or whatever it may be. And this is detrimental. You do not want to break a fast with carbohydrate. So break it with protein or break it with fat or a combination of the two.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Right. Okay. So just so people know, Rick here, who calls himself the 40-year carnivore, he's not 40 years old. He's been doing carnivore for 40 years. Wow. Well, he does look 40 years old, by the way, which is amazing. So, yeah, my hat's off to you, Rick. I love you turning up.
Steve, yeah, go on. Would Rick consider, if not already done, having bloods done that we could maybe show on one show? Would he be apt to that? Because I think there's a lot of negative comments recently, especially from vegan doctors in particular, in regards to lack of science over time in regards to the keto carnivore lifestyle. And I think I've been doing this. I've been living a keto lifestyle for 10, 11 years, carnivore for about 4, stricter version of carnivore more recently. My bloods are absolutely awesome to what I believe them to be, because that's another topic as well. These ranges that we keep coming back to. We don't want to be in certain ranges because the average person isn't healthy, but that's another topic. But would Rick consider having us allow to publish his bloods? Has he had them done? Would he have them done? Maybe a question that we can.
Yeah, you put that out. You put that out there. So let's see what he comes up with.
There we are. Fantastic.
Right, I'm trying to get back to the comments where we were, just because I scooted forward to see if he'd answered. Let's have a look. Good morning for Anchorage. Right, it's thrown me a little bit. I think that is Melina. Love watching your info. Is there a website where everything is compiled? Well, we do have a Mighty Networks, which will be amazingly populated with information. Rich, you've got a website, haven't you? I've got a website.
Yes. So with Mighty Networks, we are trying to, so we may as well explore the big news now. So Steve and I are creating a network outside of the normal social realms because it's becoming a lot more difficult to put specific information out there without being
Censored.
censored. There we are. What better term? And it does hinder our ability for people to see the videos, and it has detrimental impacts on our social and businesses, believe it or not. So this is something we can talk about on the other network after this, but Mighty Networks is something we are working on. It's free to join. There will be paid parts within there, but it's free to join. It's a community where we can all be open and we can basically speak the truth within that community, and we will be flooding it full of information. Steve's got his website. I've got my website, which is theketopro.com, and we've both got YouTube channels. All of the information is available between all of those networks, but we are trying to streamline this and put it all through Mighty Networks, hopefully, Steve, over the course of the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, it feels like I should put one of your presentations that we did for the Mighty Networks up on the screen. Maybe we will near the end, and say, if you want to know a bit more about this, reevaluation of the traditional diet hypothesis, analysis of recovered data from the Minnesota Carnivore experiment, which was in 1968, and they didn't publish it until 2016. That's what we have to get round. That the WHO, the CDC, and all those people do not want you to know the truth. It's really sad, really, really sad. And we're not the only ones saying it. I mean, it's not just the little players like us. It's the big players like, Eric Berg. I will say this, and sorry to go off on a little rant, and I don't think this will get us taken off. But if I was now looking to resolve my health, if I was where I was 10 years ago now, so when I got to 50, I had lower left quadrant pain, a colonoscopy. I thought I was going to die of colon cancer. My coronary artery calcium scan was 639. I was pre-diabetic. I had rashes all over my skin, and I was getting fatter, even though I was doing everything that the food guidelines and the WHO recommended. Yes, this is a ranty voice. So all of the things I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I avoided red meat, I avoided fat, I ate oats, grains, fruit juices and fruits and vegetables, and I was a state. Now, 10 years ago, I went on YouTube and I looked up this and I found Dr. Berg. All right. And Dr. Berg was the person that made me go low carb. Now, that would not happen. That would not happen today if I went on YouTube. If I'd searched on Google, all I would get is people telling me how bad keto is, how bad low carb is. That's what's happening over the next 30 days. If we don't align with the WHO guidelines, we won't get shown on YouTube. And that's a fact. So we shouldn't be taken down. That's what's being pushed. So if you take that further, I've had over 500 five-star reviews from people. So all of those people that I've advised that have seen their health get better, the weight come off, coming off medications, I'm getting quite cross now. I'm trying not to, they wouldn't have got better necessarily, because they wouldn't be able to listen to me or found me and then looked at Dr. Berg or Dr. Berry or Chafee or people like Richard. They wouldn't have found those people. In fact, I'm underselling this because it's probably over 1,000 people. I've got 75 success story videos. Well, Dr. Berg's got thousands. Sean Baker's got thousands. All these people would not be accessing that information. So here we are on YouTube. So there is a little bit of freedom of speech, maybe, because I've just been able to say that. But, let's get into the questions. But, so that's why we're doing what we're doing. And hopefully that'll be a way around it. Anyway, Herbert has asked, are there any concerns for low omega-3 on a beef-only way of eating, not grass-fed?
Yeah, I think all meat choices should be grass-fed. Ideally, but look, if all you can get your hands on is less, and I won't call it poor quality, because any protein is better than eating the rubbish that we are programmed to eat, and by that I mean these grains and vegetable oils and breads, pastas, rice, and even some vegetables, if not all of them. That's a topic for another day, I think. So any meat is better than not eating meat at all. But you can move that needle further. Grass-fed is going to see a way higher nutrient profile, and it's going to be more bioavailable, and that includes omega-3s. Now, I recently posted a podcast with, my goodness, my mind's gone blank, Patrick Holford. And I think I released that yesterday. It's on dementia. And that is a fantastic podcast because, and I'll break through the strap line now. So it is a bit of clickbait. I've put on there 99% of dementia is, and the answer to that question, preventable. 99+% of dementia is preventable. It's not your genetics. Genetics plays a factor with everything. But the one thing that has the biggest impact is the foods that we eat. And that is the one thing we have the most control of. So that's a fantastic podcast. But Patrick Holford is a massive advocate of seafood. Now, there is a caveat to this because some people are allergic to seafood. And I believe that this comes down to where you came from in the world. So how your ancestors have evolved. So, for anyone living in the UK, is an island, we were probably preferencing omega-3s and fish from the sea, I should imagine. So I don't have an issue with omega-3s. Omega-3s, coming back to a question you asked me earlier, which I noticed just before I came on about omega-3 supplementation. I wouldn't recommend any form of omega-3 supplementation. And the reason I say that is that omega-3s can also become oxidized in the same way as omega-6s. So it's not that omega-6s are damaging, as in linoleic acid. It's the fact that they are oxidized. Omega-3s can also become oxidized, and it doesn't take an awful long time for omega-3 supplements to become oxidized, regardless of any claims. So if you need omega-3s, try to get them from things like mackerel, sardines, or salmon. But grass-fed beef is a fantastic source of omega-3, especially if you eat as much of it as I do. But yes, the quick answer to that question is that you are going to see a lower omega-3 profile in beef that is not grass-fed. So try to preference grass-fed, but if that's all you can get your hands on, then maybe put some, and even from tins, tin sardines, as long as they are in brine and not in sunflower oil or even olive oil, then they are a fantastic source also. I used to hate things like mackerel, but I find that they now work incredibly well for me for anti-inflammatory purposes, for joint pain, and even for the brain. Omega-3s are fantastic for the brain.
Brilliant. So Phil Richardson up there in Scotland, great to have different opinions. I totally trusted Dr. Cywes. I still do a little. Always need to consider context. I will go and watch Bart Kay's response video. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I feel is anyone just saying, well, that's BS. I won't use the swear word he used. When talking about red blood cells living longer if you eat this way, which is factual and can be tested by doing a reticulocytes test. You can work out the red blood cells are either living longer. Sorry, I know I talk about this every so often, but if your HbA1c has gone up, remember it's a calculation based on how long your red blood cells are supposed to last. And now that's taken from an average person eating a carbohydrate diet. And if they live less long, so if you take someone that's hemolytic, which just is a posh way of saying their red blood cells don't live as long, you ignore their HbA1c because it's artificially low. So if you can look at patients and say, right, if it's a low HbA1c, but the red blood cells aren't lasting as long as normal, we disregard it, then surely it's logical that if your red blood cells last longer than they should and your HbA1c is higher, we should disregard it. And he just thinks that's BS, which it actually isn't. I mean, they're just facts, and they are testable by doing a reticulocytes test. So anyway, so my trust in that particular person has gone somewhat, but there you go. Right, Dronie. Like me, I'm droning on. Sorry about this. So this question was posted at 13 minutes past 7, just so people know how far behind we are at the moment. Can you explain which autoimmune diseases that carnivore can lower symptoms or even cure? So
all of them.
Yeah, I would say pretty much all of them from real experience. I know it's anecdotes, as many people think, but anecdotes. in volume becomes data. I mean, it really is that simple.
And the key is, we'll get into this really quickly. I won't take up too much of the time, but autoimmune is caused by damage to the enterocytes that line the gut. So when we basically poke holes between these cells, the epithelial cells of the enterocytes lining the gut are 1 cell thick. Their job is to protect our insides against external toxins. So they've got a pretty big job for something that's so small. And what happens is when we consume foods like grain, and gluten gets the bad rap for this, but gluten is a type of lectin, and it's not the only lectin. So there are other lectins in the form of wheat germ agglutinin and phytohemagglutinin. Phytohemagglutinin we can find in things like plants, bell peppers, tomatoes, and various other things. But these lectins will bind to the enterocytes lining the gut. They will cause the release of a molecule called zonulin. And when zonulin is released, it will cause a gap in the tight junction between these epithelial cells. This will allow undigested protein molecules to travel into the bloodstream where they shouldn't be. And then the body creates antibodies to fight them. And then through a process called molecular mimicry, the body starts attacking other proteins in the body that look the same. And this is autoimmune disease. All autoimmune disease comes from this intestinal permeability. So going carnivore, we are typically removing all the grains, wheat germ agglutinin. And if you're carnivore, you're removing all of the phytohemagglutinin, which is found in plants. The only thing that is left within the carnivore community, if you are still consuming it, would be milk. Even raw milk. So that is A2 milk, which is heavily pushed between some of the big players, if you like, within the carnivore community. This can still cause intestinal permeability. So it depends how damaged your body is. But if you are looking to combat autoimmune, the first place to start is to take away the grains. Then I would look at the foods that are higher in lectins. There's a shopping list on my website under knowledge base, so theketopro.com, where we have highlighted all of the vegetables in there which are higher in lectins. So if you are going to continue to consume vegetables, you can gravitate around these. But even milk, casein, and there are other factors as well, external toxins and things. But diet is the biggest contributing factor. What we put in is what we get out. So we need to heal the gut. So the answer to that is that in my experience, I have seen complete resolution, if not massive improvements in every autoimmune issue that I have worked with.
Yes, that I'm just going to echo that. That's good. Obviously, there are other things you can look at, like epigenetics, too much plastics, exposure to water that's been in a plastic bottle that's been in your car and heated up. So there's many other factors as well. But I would say my answer would be your best bet of resolution of symptoms is this way of eating. Because there are those other factors that could be tripping you up. All right. So, not moving enough, not getting out, stress and all those sort of things. But this way of eating certainly is going to put you ahead of everybody else when it comes to chances of resolving it all. And that includes things like thyroid. And again, we have the empirical data from blood tests, antibodies going from a very high level to being completely resolved. So, yeah. That definitely can happen. Herbert is asking, does acacia fibers in the MCT powder interfere somehow with the guts? Thanks.
So, Herbert, you may already know this, but I produce MCT oil and powder, the world's highest purity at 99.9%. What I have in this, and what I've just asked Amanda while you were talking about the reticulocytes, is to make me another one. So I've got BHB and MCT powder in there. MCT powder I use because it's bound to acacia fiber. Acacia fiber can cause issues, but you're more likely to see issues with gastro-distress from the oil. My gut is massively adapted to consuming lots of fats and things now. So the C8 oil works a lot better for me. And there we are, right on cue. Thank you, man. So there we are. There's my BHB with MCT. Anybody listening to this that would think that we've cued Herbert to come on with this at that exact time, but we didn't, honestly. So yes, I mean, fiber is an anti-nutrient. The amount of acacia fiber within MCT is going to be minimal. And there are benefits to this as well, because it's going to cause less gastro-distress typically than an oil version. So you could get away with taking a tablespoon of oil. But if you're anything like me and I put 3 times that volume in powder in. Even I think I would struggle with 30 grams or 40 or mil even of C8 oil. So with some people, I guess it is a possibility because it is an anti-nutrient. But for most, in fact, I've never known anybody who takes MCT powder to suffer with gastro distress. But I'm guessing Herbert has, and that's why he's asked the question. But it highly uncommon. If you are experiencing difficulties, then it may be worth trying the oil. And again, I sell the world's highest purity. I make the world's highest purity and is the cheapest on the market also. So not a sales pitch, but if you're going to buy it, then you may as well support me.
Yeah, well, it's not I mean, we're not here to sell stuff, but if we know about it and we can supply it, and people are going to trust us because, let's be honest, I've never really got into electrolytes, but I always do my meeting with an electrolyte drink since I've met you, Rich, and I'm giving it a go. So Rick's put, personally, I've eaten 3 meals a day my whole life and consumed 2 to 4 pounds of meat daily, no supplements. I think that the meal plan for a fat person would be different than a lifetime skinny one, and I definitely think that's true. Ven has said, Judy Cho recently did a video about OMAD. I think a lot of people do those sort of videos. Let's try and get back to a question. Oh, yeah. So talking about the bloods there, Rich has not been to the doctor since 1996.
I love it. So I'll put this out there to Rick. I get my bloods tested every year through MediChecks because I don't go to the doctor also. Although I am trying to get a CAC test, which even though you pay privately, you pay for it, you need a doctor's note to say that you need to have one. And in there lies the problem because I haven't been to my doctor for a long time. So I may have to build that relationship back up with my doctor. I don't know if I can ask any doctor because obviously I know lots of them. I don't know if it's got to come from my doctor. But I get mine done annually through MediChecks, not for my benefit, because I feel absolutely incredible. I do it for the benefit of everybody else. So when they say to me, well, what about your cholesterol? Well, I can show them my figures and I can explain why my cholesterol is absolutely awesome. What about liver, kidney damage with all the protein? Well, you can take a look at my liver and kidney function. CRP, whatever it is you want, I get it done every year. Now, I'll put this over to Rick. I would happily pay for him to have a private test with MediChecks, and it's one that can be sent to his house as a finger prick test. If he's up for that, I would gladly pay for that if we were allowed to show the data. So I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't be MediChecks because MediChecks, I think, is UK based, but you'd have to. I think Rick's in America actually.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, but he's a lovely guy, and I think, to be honest, you might get a better test for slightly less money, actually. But if we do that between yourselves, I would like to put my 2 pence in and recommend a few extra bits to make sure that everything's covered. Right. Matthew's put here, I find if I eat a little more than 100 grams of protein in one sitting, my urine becomes foamy. Is foamy urine a sign of too much protein in one meal?
I don't think you can have too much protein, but it is a sign, and it's to do with the nitrogen generally. I wouldn't be concerned. It's we quite often get told to be concerned about things that are out of the norm. Remember, the normal person is not healthy.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. And I again, when someone says too much, you can have, if you say too much, you can have too much water. All right. So it's sort of a very vague phrase. The foamy urine, going back to the bloods, for instance, your blood urea nitrogens, your urea will have the breakdown of protein because you're eating more protein, and therefore there's more nitrogen and therefore more urea. So in a blood test on Carnivore, your blood urea nitrogen reading goes up because they're not expecting you to eat so much protein, synthesize it, and have some waste products. So that's why we talk about bloods like this on Carnivore. It's completely different. It is completely different. Anyway, right. Enough of that. I'm going to let that go. So Tam now. All right, boys. Hope you are all well. What can I use for pre-workout? Please get that pump plus. Can never find the link to next hour on my laptop. Ah, you're not thick. No, right. Well, I'll put a post in. While Rich is answering that, I will get the link. I will get.
I knew you were going to pass that on to me.
Well, you know all about this.
That's fine. So Tam, it is a number of ways. One, I produce a keto pre-workout, which you may be familiar with. This is something you can make yourself, and I'll tell you exactly what's in there. We've put in citrulline, malate, L-arginine, taurine, MCT, and I think something else, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But citrulline malate is brilliant. That's a fantastic pre-workout that increases nitric oxide also. And salt is an incredible way to get a pump. Creatine, you're never going to get a better pump than taking creatine monohydrate. You can buy that anywhere online. Just look for monohydrate. It's the cheapest and it is the most effective. Don't get caught up in all of this market ploy in regards to micronized creatines with this and that. The monohydrate is the most tested and, in my opinion, is the best. It's the one that I've noticed the most benefit. But my pre-workout is back in stock. So that will give you a pump. The salt you could take before training, so lots of sodium, or the electrolytes, as in what Steve there is drinking, packed full of sodium, and the correct sodium to potassium ratio as well, which many on the market are missing. But you can get the same from taking salt, but take it from natural sources, as in pink Himalayan or Celtic sea salt. And what else would there be? Creatine, I think, is probably going to be the biggest bang for your buck. The electrolytes, and you could take for energy exogenous ketones or even MCT, but they're not going to give you a pump. They're just going to give you this energy where you can just train for stupid amounts of time. And it'll help block NLRP3 inflammasome, so it'll help you recover a lot quicker. So this is what I use, on the long rides. And it also helps buffer the lactate buildup as well, so it increases recovery. But for the pump, salt, electrolytes, or creatine are always the top choices for me.
Right, that's brilliant. We've got a new person here. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'm going to say Juha. But anyway, casein in dairy is origin for autoimmune diseases. I found that out after 3 months in Varnivote.
I'm guessing that's Carnivore. Yeah,
I'm guessing that's Carnivore, and I think that's just a mistype. But just in case it isn't, I've said it. But yeah, Carnivore, I think. Right. So Dronie has replied. Thanks. My niece is struggling with psoriasis, so now have some fuel to put in the argument to help her. Thanks. Well, psoriasis, I've got a couple of success stories on my YouTube channel, which you're now watching if you're on YouTube, of people reversing their psoriasis. Pretty horrific versions actually of psoriasis. So you've got arthritic psoriasis as well, and you've got delighted to meet you. She had terrible skin issues, and that there's loads of proof that this happens. Like I say, on Revero's website, there is many people that have seen skin issues resolving. So anyway, but that's great. Thank you, Dronie. That's very good.
Really quickly before we go on, is there any issue in regards to me posting that link into the Facebook group for the guys who are listening on Facebook? Is there any reason we can't put the Apple Crumble link?
Yeah. No, I think that's fine. I think it's already gone in, isn't it? I think you did it. I
don't think I've put that into the group because we're streaming. Yeah, there we are. I'll put that on now because obviously at 8 p.m. we are going over to the other group. Where we can
platform. The other platform.
Platform, apologies. So it's going to come up as StreamYard when I've just pasted the link. I won't put the platform.
Oh, hang on a minute. Let me see what you've just pasted. I can't see what you've just posted.
Oh, wait a minute. No, in fact, sorry, I'm going to have to take the one that you've put into. Apologies. Yeah, let me put this one in because that link is for me.
I was going to say we're going to have quite a few hosts. But there you go. Right. Let's go back to, let's have a look at this.
Yes, we do ship to Australia. So in regards to that, if you ping me an email, I'm in the process of setting up channels through the website where this will all be automated. But because of Brexit, we came away from all international shipments because we were experiencing loads of trouble. But if you drop the guys an email at info@keto-pro.co.uk, with a list of what you're looking for, they will find the best price for you because we do ship to Australia. I ship bits out to Lisa Tamati, who's an award-winning author
Australia.
Out there. Australia, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said Australia. Just for people listening, Rich there forgot to read the question out in case you're wondering why we're suddenly talking about this. Pamela has asked, hi guys, Richard, I've tried to purchase your supplements, but they don't send to Australia. Is there any way around this? Love your info. Yeah, sorry about that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pamela. I can't remember whether Lisa Tamati is New Zealand or Australia, but we ship to both, so that's fine.
Cool. That's great.
Thank you,
right. So Matthew, who's getting him lots of questions. So that's fine. We'll answer these questions or comments. Richard has trained his woman butler well.
I won't tell her.
Put the cat amongst the pigeons there. Right. And here's Rick's answer to the blood test, which is really good. I would be willing to get tested at some time. One of these days, I will need to re-enter the medical system to get a hernia fixed I got from being in a car accident. So, yeah. Well, let's see how that works. That would be interesting, wouldn't it, to get a 40-year carnivore? Let's have a look at the next question. I think we're well ahead now. Now, if you're on Facebook and you're posting any comments, or if you're on X, which used to be called Twitter, lovely those platforms are. It seems that we can't get those comments through, so I don't know how we'll do that. We'll try and work that out. Every week when we try to go to more platforms, we get these little teething problems. So anyway, on YouTube, we're able to see the comments. I think on Facebook, we might be able to as well. Anyway, Saved. That's a good name. How to start keto/carnivore with teenager, 16-year-old with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a problem that that I have on a daily basis with my little girl. She's only 9, but it is tough trying to get the younger ones to adhere to this way of eating. I think the best success stories I have seen have come from the youngsters who have issues and who are already used to maybe living a more stricter way of life and having to medicate and be on the ball with things. But look, I would do this steadily, and this would be something that would be perfect within the Mighty Networks, within the Fat Club presentation or course, the 8-week course that we've just put in there. It's £25. I don't know what that is in dollars.
Per month. Yeah, £25 per month. That's about $30 a month.
But it's an 8-week course packed full of information, and it's a step-by-step process of incremental things. Now, all of these things you can find through looking on my website, through my YouTube channel, through Steve's YouTube channel. All of this information is there. But incremental changes is best. But if you want the support, then that's available in the group. But incremental changes, maybe removing one thing each week, and trying to find replacements. So aim for low carb replacements as time goes by. The last thing you want to do is pull the rug from underneath, because this is going to lead to failure. Most people fail because it becomes too difficult. So through incremental changes, it would be the best advice that I could give, I think, Steve. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Well, yeah. I mean, the problem you're fighting is mainstream medical information, which seems to want people to have 6 meals a day and lots of carbohydrates and lots of breads. Now, I am a diabetes and obesity specialist in the UK, specialist practitioner, and you can prove that advice is not well tolerated for most people by just getting a glucose monitor and trying to eat that way that they're recommending and the foods that they're recommending, and see for yourself that your blood glucose goes high. When I was trained, a very simple question I asked seemed to get laughed out of the room. This was many years ago, although low carb was known about then, when I said, it seems really crazy. We're always talking about dosing for insulin in relation to carbohydrate intake. Why don't we just reduce the carbohydrate intake? Which apparently is so sensible. Nobody thought it was great. It was just too easy an answer. Literally, they just thought that was ridiculous. You've got to have loads and loads of carbs. So Dr. Richard Bernstein did the Diabetes Solution book. He is testament. He's a type 1 diabetic, because most people who write about diabetes tend to be type 2, and type 1 is completely different kettle of fish. Your pancreas isn't producing enough insulin. But as he says, you want to have small problems, not big problems. So once you start eating lots of carbohydrates, you get lots of blood glucose spikes. Therefore, you have to dose with more insulin, etc., etc. So that's the first thing. You've got to look at that advice and think, well, is this helpful? When you've got a condition which is all about trying to process and metabolize carbohydrates, why would you keep adding even more carbohydrates? So that's just, this is not being your doctor or telling you what to do. It's telling you the information that you need to think about. So you could look at reducing carbohydrates, and then you'll see smaller variations in blood glucose numbers, and then you'll see smaller need for insulin medications. I mean, that's just how it is, because that's what you're told. So use the information they're actually giving you and flip it on its head and think, oh, hang on a minute, they're telling me to eat lots of carbohydrates and have lots and lots of insulin. So if I reduce my carbohydrates, I can reduce my insulin. Okay. So there's no common sense in the eat 6 times a day. Their way of promoting it and saying that is good advice is it stops you being hypoglycemic. It ensures that you don't have low blood sugars. Well, if you monitor your blood sugars properly and you eat the right amount of food, then you wouldn't have a problem anyway. So there you go. So it is difficult when you've got young children. They want to go to McDonald's. They want to do what their friends do. I totally understand that. But how do you start? With probably education and looking at the things objectively. Maybe go online, have a look at when you do a search, for instance, say Dr. Eric Berg or Dr. Ken Berry, make sure that's in your search term, and then you'll see what I'm saying. So that's that. So let's go to the next thing, which is another name I've not seen before. Kronos 77. Is it safer to eat raw milk, heavily aged cheeses than any other types of dairy?
Yeah, raw milk is always going to be better. No milk is better still. So again, it's all about these incremental changes. So we had Podrick on recently, didn't we? A few weeks ago, and Podrick was a big advocate of raw milk, and we brought that up when we had the chat. And he's moved away from drinking it every day, and now he drinks it occasionally as a treat, as I do. Not with raw milk, but as a treat occasionally, I will consume a full-fat Greek yogurt. Now, that works incredibly well for me, and cheese works very well for me. It doesn't seem to matter what type of cheese with me, apart from the fake cheeses. And by that, I mean, my wife recently bought some Red Leicester, and I bit into the Red Leicester, and there we are, our service view. And it tasted like plastic. So when I checked the ingredients, there was a list of ingredients on there, and it's meant to be just cheese. And it wasn't Red Leicester. It was Red Leicester flavored cheese with all of these additives to make it taste like Red Leicester, but it just tasted like plastic. So I think real cheese, whether it's hard or soft, you're going to have to gauge it. And it depends. Everybody makes cheese differently. And it's to do with the casein and how much rennet, and all this has been added to reduce all of these nasties. So every cheese is different. The one from Lidl in the UK works best for me. It's incredibly cheap as well. But yeah, raw milk better, no milk better still. And if you're going to eat cheeses, just work out which one works for you. Just make sure it's a real cheese. But I'll be honest, I am a carnivore. I'm strict carnivore. I eat an awful lot of cheese. Cheese works really well for me. Other people I work with, they can't work well with it at all. And I'm hypersensitive. So I guess it comes back to possibly a genetic factor there in regards to why, cheese works well for me and it doesn't with others. But unless it's brand specific, potentially. I did try this with Carl. Carl is an avid listener to the show. He couldn't make it today. We had a chat last week. And it'll be interesting to see how he's getting on, because he suffers severely with gastro issues when it comes to cheeses. I told him which brand, from Lidl's to try, and it'd be interesting to see how he is getting on with that, actually. But interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I think with the dairy also, you've got the odd chain fatty acids. So when fatty acids are lysed up, they're cut up into 2 carbon fragments. But when you've got an odd chain fatty acid, you then end up with a 3 carbon fragment, which the body loves to take to the liver and make into glucose. So that's why some people actually have a weight loss stall. One of the different mechanisms that many people don't talk about is the odd chain fatty acids. But I don't want to dwell on that because we've got one last question, which is before we go over to our 8 o'clock on a different platform. Landers Polemis. Good evening, Richard and Stephen. I'm currently on a no carb diet. Awesome. Rich is waving there, but if we're on the audio, you won't hear that. In regard to exercise, would you predominantly recommend resistance or aerobic exercise?
Whatever your goal is. Look, you can do it all. And there are no pigeonholes. I've trained bodybuilding. I built an awful lot of muscle when I was bodybuilding, and now I've gone into running and cycling, so a complete 180. You can do whatever you want. It's that adaptation period that's really important. It's upregulating pathways within the body, in particular the monocarboxylate transporters, which we can probably go into a bit more detail if we've got time on the next platform, Steve, in regards to adaptation and how the body upregulates these systems in simple terms. And it's upregulating enzymes within the body, like BDH and ACAT and SCOT through the monocarboxylate transporters. But when you adapt, you can do whatever you want. Now, there would be a set way to do this, but I think seeing as we've only got 4 minutes, it's probably not enough time to get into that in detail. Maybe we'll pick that up on next week's show.
Yeah, but, absolutely. I just wanted to show a slide that we added to the Fat Club, which I thought was interesting. This is the sort of thing that you won't be able to hear on YouTube within maybe like 28 days, something like that. So, for instance, this is, factual. You could look this up. You could look up the reevaluation of traditional diet hypotheses analysis of recovered data from the Minnesota coronary experiment of 1968 to 1973. And Rich so eloquently was talking about this in Fat Club the other day, where this study was hidden because the outcome wasn't what they expected or what they wanted. Depends how you want to view it. And I think it's scandalous that the fact that there was 9,423 people, and some were given a high saturated fat diet, and the other were using vegetable oils. And the outcomes for the people with the vegetable oils was horrendous, absolutely horrendous compared to the people on saturated fats. Now, that's not the story they want to tell you. So therefore, that data didn't get released in 1973. It was only some researcher going back over it and re-releasing it, or releasing it for the first time in 2016. That's information that we are trying to do. So when you go over to the other platform, that's the sort of thing we're able to talk about, which we aren't really able to talk about here. I know we've just flashed that up, but that is so factual and so well known. I doubt that would get us taken down. So, Rich, do you want to say anything before we go over to our 8 o'clock?
Yeah, there were a few things that I wanted to cover. I think we'll probably have to jump on the other channel to cover them. There was a few questions that I've had through YouTube channel and through social media. Now, one of them was to do with high blood pressure when beginning a keto carnivore lifestyle. So I wanted to go into that a little bit, and 42 minutes wouldn't be long enough. Not for me, at least. So I'd like to explain a potential mechanism in regards to that. What else was there? There's been lots of questions recently on this. That's the one that springs to mind. The other one I think was to do with electrolytes, and do we need to supplement with electrolytes if we live in a keto carnivore lifestyle, and why didn't our ancestors use them? So 2 exciting topics that maybe we can get into on the other platform. So yeah, I mean, I think we've covered everything else. If
we have. So guys on YouTube and everywhere else, we're going to end this stream, and then we're going to go over to the other one at 8 o'clock. So there's a little gap as we shut this one down and open the other one up, but I'd like to see you over there. And thanks for watching if you can't get over to the other platform.
Thank you, guys.